channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use a Blue Planet ding stick to repair a ding in a board. And I'm also going to use some rail tape to cover it up. And that's a really good way to fix a board. It's kind of a temporary repair, not perfect, but it's a great way to get a watertight repair so you can get out on the water within about half an hour of this repair. So let's get started. The ding stick comes with a small piece of sandpaper. So I got that. I also got a knife, and I have a piece of rail tape that I cut to the right size. So this ding here, it looks like somebody really just fell forward and hit their knee on the board. Of course, they said nothing ever touched the board, and the ding just appeared magically. All I did was cut this crack open a little bit so it could dry out, and now the foam inside is completely dry. If you stick a piece of paper towel in there, it's completely dry, so there's no more moisture inside the board. So the ding stick is a two-part putty. Inside it has like a green outside and then gray inside. It's best to use a knife to cut a piece off so you get the same equal amount of both parts, the green and the gray. You cut off a slice, and for a smaller repair, all you need is a very thin piece of this. You don't want to use too much. You can always add a little bit more if you need more. You mix the two parts together really well until the green kind of disappears into that gray and there's like a consistent gray color. Wearing gloves makes this kind of stick to the gloves, so I like to just use my plain fingers for this. So before you apply the putty, you want to rough it up a little bit just to make sure it sticks well. And I'm just going to rough it up right around the crack where we want the putty to go. I'm going to try not to sand too much of it so that the deck still has that nice glossy finish. So, and that little piece of sandpaper that comes with it works well for that. I'm going to kind of make a little snake out of this. Nice equal amount over this crack. You'll notice it kind of wants to stick more to your fingers than to the board. So right now I'm just placing it. I'm not trying to get it to stick down yet. So I'm just placing the putty where I want it. It keeps wanting to stick to my fingers right now, but this is about where I want it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wash my hands, wash all this off with some soap, and then I'll be able to stick it down without having it stick to my fingers. Okay, so you'll find that the putty washes off fairly easily with some soap, and now I'm going to leave my hands wet. So with the wet fingers I can push down this putty without having it stick to my hands anymore. So now I can kind of shape it the way I want it, fill in the crack. And I'm going to kind of push it a little bit into the foam, and by pushing it down into the foam and kind of a little bit underneath the glass as well, kind of reinforces it. This putty is great because if there's a little bit of moisture or air in the board, usually the resin will allow little air bubbles to come through the resin because it's softer. So by using putty, this thicker putty will not allow air bubbles to come through, so no pinholes get formed. So the problem with using like solar res or other thin resins is that they will develop small pinholes while it's curing. So you will usually have some small leaks from the pinholes. So by using this putty, which is really thick and dense, it won't allow it to develop any pinholes. And then, you know, by just rubbing it, I can get a really nice finish. And I'm just working it here, trying to get a nice border, making it look kind of clean. So I'm actually going to trim a little bit of epoxy off right here. It looks a little bit thick right here, so it's going to remove a little bit of epoxy where I find it a little bit thick, just to make it a thin layer. You don't want to have a big bulge of it on top. And then I'm going to make my fingers wet again, and then smooth it out a little bit again. So you want fairly thin layer on top of the board. This rail tape is a wet application tape, and I cut it so it fits nicely over this ding. What I'm going to do is spray a little bit of water on the board itself. It's like soapy water, and then I'm also going to spray some water on the bottom of the tape. Now by doing this, you can just get all the air bubbles out, and but you do have to wait a little bit longer to let it cure or let it dry completely before you take it in the water, because otherwise this tape can't come off. But yeah, the nice thing too is you can reposition it get it in the right place. It doesn't stick until you push it down. So I'm gonna find a good location for it. Now I'm gonna just get all the air bubbles out of it. The epoxy putty isn't fully cured yet, but this is a 2-part putty, so it doesn't need air to cure. Okay, so by using this rail tape, it just protects the ding from cracking, or for the epoxy putty to just keep it in place. So this kind of, instead of glassing over it, using this rail tape is an easier way to fix it without using epoxy resin and so on. It's just good to make sure the water underneath is completely dried out, so it has a good adhesion. And then, you know, the putty itself will add some strength to it as well, and having it kind of pushed into the foam makes it stronger. And that's it. It's a super simple way to fix your board. I'll have a link for the epoxy putty up above in the information tab, also down below in the description if you want to order it. You can also get a piece of that rail tape. Should never take a board out in the water if it has an open ding that can leak water, because getting water into the board is easy, getting it back out is very difficult. Especially if you have a board on your roof rack or out in the sun and the board is a little bit hot. In the hot board, air will expand, so air will kind of come out of the board when it heats up. And then when you put the board in the water, the board cools off and it'll kind of suck air back in. And if the ding is in the water, if there's water on the ding, it'll basically suck the water into the board. If the air contracts inside the board because it cools off, it'll just suck in water, and then that water is kind of spreads out inside the board. The longer you leave a ding unrepaired, the more the water will spread into your board, and the harder it's going to be to take it back out and let it dry out. So always make sure you keep your board completely sealed. A bunch of years ago, I showed a repair using only the putty, which is fine. It's a good way to repair it, but covering it with tape, I find it's an even better way and a little bit more permanent way to fix it. So that's it for a super easy way to fix your board with the Blue Planet epoxy ding stick and a little piece of rail tape. Thanks for watching the Blue Planet Surf YouTube channel. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel down below. We come out with a new video every week. And as a little bonus to our subscribers, we never play ads for the first week of the video. So if you subscribe and get the notifications, you can watch all the new videos ad-free for the first week. All right, thanks for watching. See you on the water. Aloha. Nahui ho.